This video is a tribute to my dear, strong mom who passed away early this year. And this video is also to talk about some of the things that she went through and how she came through so amazingly better than what she was given as a child. So this is for me to do for my mom as a tribute to her for Mother's Day. Because today is Mother's Day. Whether or not this video gets out on Mother's Day, I'm doing this on Mother's Day for my mom. Hopefully I don't choke up. I've already done a video and have to redo it. To begin, my mom is amazing. But I want to talk about what happened to her first with her childhood. And in her childhood, she came from a dad who was abusive. And I love my grandpa. He was a good-hearted man. And I'm pretty sure that his mom and dad were pretty rough, tough people. And maybe their parents, from there, I just see a pattern of this abuse going down from one generation to another. And I think that we get stuck in these patterns because we grow up thinking these things are normal and this is just life. But I think that some people are like, God blesses them to know that this isn't right and there are better ways. And I feel like my mom knew that and she did better. She did way better than what she was given as a child. So at any rate, my grandpa was physically and verbally abusive to his children and my poor dear grandma. She got the worst of it. He used to beat her. At any rate, so my mom's childhood was pretty hard. And then her grandparents had gotten divorced and her grandma, my great-grandma, remarried a man. So her step-grandpa was, I would probably say he was probably a psychopath. This man was a satanic cult leader. And so my mom was dealing with physical and verbal abuse in her home, though her dad, if he had known this was going on to my mom, would have never allowed it to ever happen to her. But unfortunately, her parents had no idea. But when my mom would go and visit her grandma, that step-grandpa was there, and he would sexually abuse her over and over, and all sorts of manner of sexual abuse. I mean, just horrible abuses in that way. And not just with him, he would make other people abuse her at times. And my mom didn't tell me everything about her abuses because they were just so horrific and she didn't want to remember them. But she did tell me and other family members some of them. One of the times that he abused her, he took her to his cabin and some of his satanic cult people were with him. They abused her with what's called ritual abuse. And just to give you a background, the satanic religion, they have their own holidays, and there's some holidays that are some of their highest, holiest holidays. And Halloween is one of their highest, holiest holidays for the satanic cult. And it's interesting to me, I did a Halloween video a couple of years ago. And it's just, I've done some research on this type of abuse because I wanted to understand it. And at any rate, it's horrible. The things that they do to these innocent babies, children, women, and sometimes men. But it's usually done on babies and children. And many times it's done and handed down from one generation to another. So they take their own children or step-grandchildren and they do these horrific things to them and make them do things that, you know, are horrible for them and use that against them to say that if you say anything about these things, then you'll go to jail or whatever, to keep them in submission. And so many times these children, if they're not their children, sometimes they do murder their own children and torture them and murder them. But, they also get children where they kidnap them. And these children or babies are, the babies or children that are sacrificed for their communion or sacrament. But usually they're tortured and then killed with all that adrenaline. They're like adrenaline junkies. They love the adrenaline in their blood, and they will drink as their communion or sacrament these babies or children's blood, or women, and eat their flesh. It's horrible. At any rate, at one time, when my mom's step-grandpa took her to his cabin and had these other cult members with him, there was one time that they had put a severed man's head on a platter, and my mom was forced to carry this man's severed head on a platter and was told that that was her birthday cake. What they do to these children is they torture them and they abuse them so much to where their brain disassociates and shuts down those abusive parts. And also they do hypnotic stuff to them where they brainwash them, and certain sounds, certain things that they see, certain ways they're touched, they will then be able to control them. So it's a way to be able to control people. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Illuminati or Monarch. This is like mind control. This is what these people do, is they try and control these children that they're not going to murder. But they generally torture them so that their minds disassociate and that they can have control of these kids' minds or these women's minds. So in the future, if they make these sounds or show them certain things or touch them in a certain place, their brain will disassociate and turn off to where they can now control this person. My mom remembers seeing another child at these ritual abuse things, and then because of all the things that she was having to endure through these abuses, her step-grandpa would bring her home, and I guess he had, what my mom said, a hole that he had dug that he would put all the bodies of who he murdered into this hole. And then she said that he had chemicals in his sunhouse, greenhouse, sunhouse, next to the flowers that he had in there. And I would assume those chemicals were probably the chemicals that would disintegrate a human body pretty quick. I don't know for sure, but that's probably what it was. At any rate, he put her in this hole and told her if she said anything to anybody, she would be put into this hole and be dead with these bodies. He also told her if she said anything, he would kill her mom and dad and her siblings. So she had better not say anything to anyone. And so this was another way to control her from not disclosing what was happening to her. And he would even do that at her own parents' house. Like my mom said that she would go down and get something out of the food storage room for her mom, and he went down there and made her do sexual things and then came back up. I mean, this happened at the age of 6 to the age of 12 for my mom, unfortunately. I don't know all that went into it. I just know that my mom went through horrific things and saw horrific things and was basically tortured. At any rate, because her mind disassociated from all these horrible abuses, she didn't remember any of it until she had my sister, and my sister became the age that her abuses started, so around 6. And then she started having flashbacks and having dreams and remembering things, and it got so bad that she had to go inpatient to the mental hospital because it was such horrible things that she was remembering and reliving. And so there were a couple of times that I remember my mom being gone because she was in the hospital, in the psych ward, trying to get through these abuses and work through them. And as a child, seeing the aftermath of horrible abuses like this was hard. I remember my mom having a knife, and I knew something wasn't right, so I ran to the neighbors and said something is not right with my mom, and the next thing I see is an ambulance, and my mom was gone after that. And that was when I was a young child. And then I remember as a young adult, I was at my parents' house. Some of my family was in the living room, and my mom and I were in the kitchen, and she had a bottle of pills, and she said, "I'm going to take all these pills. I don't want to live anymore." And I was like trying to get those pills out of her hand, and just, having to see my mom, because part of what they do is that mind control. They put in these people, these kids, that if they ever feel like they are going to disclose these abuses, that they put in their mind that they need to kill themselves. And so this is part of that. And also because they do this mind control, disassociation stuff with these children, we were told by my mom's psychologist that there are certain times of the year that my mom was not to answer the phone, and she was not to answer the door, because if these satanic cult members got my mom's phone number, they could call and make a certain sound, and it would disassociate my mom's brain, and they would have control of my mom at that point. Also, if they came and, knocked on the door, they could say something, do something, or touch my mom in a certain way that would make her brain go into that part where they could control her. So there were certain times of the year that she couldn't answer the phone or the door, and I took that very seriously. So when I was around, I would just make sure I answered the phone, and I would answer the door if anyone came. I would assume that these specific times of the year were probably the satanic holiday times, and they wanted to do those ritual abuses. And Halloween is one of their highest, holiest holidays. And I know in the fall, those were times that my mom could not answer the door or the phone. And I can tell you, through my experience, this isn't everybody's experience, because not all my family gets triggered like this, but I certainly do. And I've never been abused like my mom. We went as kids to a therapist to make sure that we were okay and we were fine. For me, because of watching all that my mom went through and hearing some of the things that she had to go through, and knowing that Halloween is one of their highest, holiest holidays, and knowing that my mom had to carry a man's head on a platter. Jack-o'-lanterns, seeing jack-o'-lanterns is a major trigger for me. I hate Halloween because all of the different things that my mom went through or other people went through that I've researched, they're like, it's just a reenactment. I swear, Halloween is a reenactment of the abuses that these people still do today. And you might think, oh, well, this was back a long time ago when her mom was a child. But I can tell you, I had friends. I have a couple of friends that I know that have been through ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse. And if you know Operation Underground Railroad, OUR goes and rescues children who are taken from witches or witch doctors or warlocks who kidnap kids. They kill them and they take their heads or certain body parts of their body, and they use them as like relics, as like a worship thing. They believe that they get more power if they have someone's head or limbs or certain body parts. They believe that it gives them more power. And they like to take their blood and drink their blood. They believe that gives them more power too. Like, this is still going on to this day, and I believe people need to know that this happens. And if somebody comes up to you and says this is happening, please don't dismiss it and be like, oh, they just watched a horror movie. Where do you think those horror movies come from? It comes from stuff like this. People still live and survive these things to tell it. And they're not legends. At least my mom's story is real. It's not a legend. Like, this stuff truly happens to people. And a lot of times it happens to babies and children and women, sometimes men. There are certain times in the Satanic year where they abuse sexually people, where they make a sacrifice of a human life or animal lives. Like, this stuff is still going on, and it's many times during the year that this happens to people. And it happened to my mom. And it's so horrible. And many people don't even know that this stuff is happening. And it's not just in like Africa or third world countries where they have witch doctors. This is happening in cabins, in houses, in basements, in barns. It's happening in forests. It's happening, and probably in many neighborhoods around you. It's very hidden. But what's disturbing is even Hollywood's coming out more and more with these satanic things. I remember seeing a picture of Madonna with heads of babies all over her. And then babies with like blood dripping out. And then also some of these satanic ritual signs that some of these Hollywood people and singers, famous singers, sing about or in their videos show. It's very disturbing. It's becoming more and more where that's not hidden, because I swear it's becoming more and more prevalent to where they're trying to normalize it. And it is a serious thing. And I feel so horrible for the Jewish people who back in October, which I do not think that was a coincidence that all this happened in the month of October during some of the highest satanic holidays, that the Hamas attacked the Jewish people, and that some of the victims, they took their heads off, severed their heads, dismantled their heads. I feel so bad for any of those family members that might come to America around October, because then they will have to see all these jack-o'-lanterns sitting outside of people's houses, all these disturbing visual things of people being hung, skeletons, witches with their spell brews, and vampires, and all these things. I just feel like those could be some serious triggers for people, like the Jewish people, if they were to ever come to America during October and have to be triggered by these jack-o'-lanterns, especially. Like, I know for me, even though I was never abused, jack-o'-lanterns are a trigger for me, because it makes me remember what happened to my mom. And then I remember having to see the aftermaths of what happened growing up to a person who's abused horrifically like this. To me, Halloween, well, I know Halloween is a satanic holiday, and it truly is a way for them to have people reenact the horrific abuses that they do to people behind closed doors. But unfortunately, they're getting more and more brave to try and make this normalized. And I hope that people, maybe this video might wake people up to understand that this is the road that they're headed down, to try and normalize this and make it seem like it's okay for them to do it. And it's totally not okay. It was not okay for Hamas to murder anyone and then let alone cut their heads off and this be so inhumane and disrespectful. And all those Jewish people that have to endure that. And then if they are here, endure having to see that in so many neighborhoods and be triggered. At any rate, sorry I went off on a tangent on that, but it really kind of goes along with what I'm talking about with my mom. My mom survived, and not a lot of children or babies or people do not survive this abuse. They're not meant to survive it. Some are meant to survive it so that they can hand it down from generation to generation. But my mom was amazing because she came from horrific abuse and had to endure from her psychopath step-grandpa these types of satanic ritual abuses, and then her father who was abusive. But as a mom, she chose to only take the good and discard the bad, and she did so much better. Not to say that there weren't some serious dysfunctions too, but she never abused us. She did not abuse her children, and she never did anything to what she had to endure to us. I believe the hardest thing to deal with was her yelling. But my mom, I swear, never really got out of that adrenal PTSD fight and flight. I feel like my mom a lot was in that fight or flight, unfortunately. And when I saw her towards the end of her life, we believe she had some dementia. What still haunts me today is just remembering how right before she died, how she was reliving those horrific things. And if there's anyone out there in the medical field, I would love to see somebody come up with something that can stop the part of the brain where abuse can be stored, to where a person will not have to relive their abuses, especially when they're on their way out, that they're about to die, or if they have dementia, that they don't have to relive this, because that was one of the hardest things for me and my family to watch, is watching my mom have to relive that and trying to tell the medical staff and the doctors, is there any sedative you can give her so that she doesn't have to relive her abuses? And they're like, well, we don't know if she's reliving it, so we can't give that. The best they could do was give her anxiety medicine and then a sleeping pill, which didn't do a ton for her. The anxiety pill at one point, they gave her so much that it was making her so tired she was sleeping most of the day and night. So then they lessened it, but then it was hard because we wanted to talk to my mom and not have her be asleep all the time. But when they would take her off, she was just constantly in the fight and flight, reliving everything, screaming, yelling, like fighting the medical professions. And that's another thing, like if you see a person, an elderly person that's ornery and fighting things, I can almost guarantee they're in that fight and flight and they're reliving something. And maybe if you can remember this, maybe if you have to work with an elderly person that's fighting so much, maybe just think these people are probably reliving something that was horrible in their life, and I can be patient. And I can tell you right now, one of my relatives used intimidation on my mom, and that I did not like that intimidation method. And then the workers would just keep saying, come on, we got to get you to the bathroom. I remember just kind of my experimental brain just going up to my mom because this worker couldn't get her up to go in the bathroom. She was fighting it. I just went down on my mom's eye level and said, "Mom," in a really calm, loving voice, "Mom, look at me. Look at me, Mom." And she finally put her head up and looked at me, and I said, "Mom, we need to get you to the bathroom. I need you to put your hands here and your hands here on our walker." And she finally was willing to do it because someone, she did not have a very gentle home, and she just wanted to be loved and people to be gentle and kind to her. And so I just thought, you know what? She's fighting, and so many people are fighting back with her and, sometimes yelling at her, that I was like, if it were me, I would want someone to be gentle with me and to be soothing. And so that's what I did. And guess what happened? She did exactly what I asked her to. She put her hands on her walker, and we were able to get her up and go to the bathroom. And it was just all a person needed to do was to show love and gentleness to her. And she responded so much better to that than intimidation and yelling and fighting with her. At any rate, she was just so much in that PTSD, that fight or flight towards the end of her life. And it was so hard to watch that to the end. And I spent the night before she died at the hospital with her, and she was just so restless, so, fighting and screaming. And I was just remember saying, "Mom, I'm here. You're safe. I won't leave you alone. You're safe, Mom. I'm here." Holding her hand, rubbing her head, giving her a kiss, singing her favorite song, "Hey Jude," and then making my own words up to that melody because I knew she loved it. My mom was a champion. She supported us growing up, and everything that we did, she was there, supporting us, being there for us, being our greatest cheerleader. And I can tell you right now, in some of my darkest hours, it was God and my mom that were there for me in my darkest hours. That's how my mom was. That's the type of mom I got to have. And though she wasn't perfect, none of us are perfect. I am so grateful that I came and I was born of goodly parents. I love my mom so dearly. She is the strongest woman I have ever known and probably ever will know. And that she was a mama bear through and through. You did not mess with her kids because she would be there, be by our side every time. She was our greatest champion, cheerleader, everything. And I love and dearly miss my mom, and I'm so grateful that I can still feel my mom. I'm grateful for that God has given me that gift to feel my mom. And I had an experience where I eventually realized that it was my mom trying to tell me that she was not happy with some things that were happening, that some of my relatives were doing not long after she had passed, that were just not right. And I didn't know it was happening, but I could feel it all day that something wasn't right. And then the next day when I found out what had happened, I was like, that was my mom. My mom was trying to let me know she's not okay with what's happening here and that she was sad. And so I still know my mom, all to be warned. My mom is still that mama bear out there. She's still looking after me, and I feel it and I experience and can still feel her love for me and that protective mom that she always has been. She's one amazing mom. I'm so grateful. Even though it wasn't easy to watch my mom go through what she did, and it wasn't easy not having a mom around often. as a kid, even because she was going through so much. Even when she was there, she wasn't really there because she was working through so much. But I'm so grateful for her because she did her absolute best. From what she came from, she gave us such a better life. And I feel like that's what moms are there to do, is to take the good from their childhood and discard the bad, and then to find healthier, better ways. And I feel like, especially in families like mine, because both sides of my family, my mom's and my dad's, had different types of abuses. But if us as the next generation can only take the good and discard the bad, and then find healthier ways to raise our own families, and then tell our children, you know what? I want you to be a better parent than me. The things that you didn't like, I want you to find healthier ways, and then work at it and become what you wanted. And I feel like if every generation had that and was taught that, you know what? Be better than me. Do better than me. Find better ways. Find healthier ways. Be a better mom. And we all strive to do better and better as parents. I feel like that will be the momentum that will get us to be such a Zion good, wholesome people. I know that there's that tendency to pass along abuse from one generation to another, because it's so easy to think if that's the way you do it, that's normal and everybody must do it that way. But I feel like God puts certain people in families to break out of that cycle of dysfunction and abuse, and to help other people in the family see there are better ways, and then to raise their children in those better ways, and then to teach their children, now when you have your family, find healthier ways and do things better, and then just keep getting that momentum of getting healthier and healthier. I know it can be done. I watched it with my own mom, and I'm striving for that with my own children. And I already tell my children, I want you to be a better mom. I want you to be a better dad when you have your own kids. And that is what we're going to need to do to get out of all this craziness that's prevalent in our world today. And that we need to be very close to God, because God is the person that helped my mom the most, and that has helped me the most to know how to get out of more and more dysfunction and get into more healthier, loving ways. So I just wanted to share my mom's story to help people know that this is happening, still happening. And to, on Mother's Day, tribute my mom for the amazing, strong woman that she is. She survived something that a lot of people don't survive. And she survived. And she did so much better than what she was given. And I'm so proud of my mom. I'm so grateful that I was born to goodly parents who did their very best from what they came from. I want to wish all the mothers and grandmothers out there a happy Mother's Day. I don't know if this is going to get out on Mother's Day, but it was done on Mother's Day. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time. Bye.